Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm here for my weekly wrap up. This is actually all the books that I read for the first week of September, so all the books from the 1st through the 7th. And I actually have 10 books to talk about, so much improved from the last couple weeks where I was only reading 5 books. I was having some issues. Plus, it's the first week of the romance readathon that Maggie from Maggie's Books and Stuff has put on, so I get kind of competitive and it's been a lot of fun, so I've been pushing myself to read more. So I don't want this to be a super long video, but I have one book that I'm probably going to go into great detail about and rave about, so I probably will end up talking a while. So let's not put this off. Let's get right into it because I have a feeling it's going to be a longer wrap up video. So let's go ahead and dive into my weekly reads. Okay guys, so much to go over. It's been a crazy first week for the romance readathon. Discord has been crazy. We've been having so much fun. I'm on Team Ballet Dancers. I'm one of the co-hosts. And we are reading, Why Choose and Shifter. So I have some Why Choose and Shifter here. But I did have to read through some ARCs and ALCs. So I needed to get those done. So they didn't really match my team's tropes, but hopefully this next week I'll be able to do some more. But I have some more ARCs and a couple ALCs that I have to read too. So it was a busy month for me for my ARCs and stuff. So anyways, if you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Hit that reminder to get notified of any content that I post. I would really appreciate any support. Anyways, let's just dive into it because I have 10 books to go over. So the first book was an ARC, and this was Brutal Savage by Lilian Harris. I am actually on Lilian Harris's ARC team, so I was excited to get this one. This is the second book in the Savage King series, and it's the Irish Mafia. Now this one I really loved. I liked the first one, but I really loved this one because it was like giving you single dad, possessive hero, woman on the run kind of vibes here, and I just really loved it because Lilian really took the time to establish these characters and build a connection. But what is this about? This is Tynan. I think it's Tynan or Tynan. I'm gonna call him Tynan. I'm probably saying that wrong. But Tynan and Alara's romance, and Tynan is actually the future heir, basically future head of the Irish Mafia. His father currently is running it, but he wants to step down. Before he steps down, though, he wants Tynan to get married because he needs to get an heir and all of that. So he's kind of been on Tynan's case that he needs to be getting married, and Tynan's been pushing that off. He doesn't want to take it on because he has recently adopted his cousin's child. His cousin died mafia reasons, I believe. And then his wife had actually killed herself after he died. And the son, I think it's Brody. Yeah, Brody found the mother. So this poor boy is I think he was 8 or 10. I can't remember the age, but around there. And he was very traumatized. And he is basically selectively mute right now. He doesn't speak. He hasn't for a year. So Tynan has a lot on his plate because he's trying to be there for Brody, but Brody's kind of keeping him at a distance. He's this poor traumatized kid, so there's a lot that he's having to deal with. And Brody has actually built a really good connection with his teacher Alara, and she has a lot of secrets though. She's a woman on the run. She has a pretty bad past with some dangerous people, and she went on the run, kind of changed her name, took her grandparents with her. So she has a lot on her plate because she's constantly scared that they're gonna find her. And she's financially trying to take care of her grandparents. Her grandfather has dementia, so he's in one of those type of home facilities, and so she has a lot on her, and she's having a hard time paying for that, being on the run and all of that. So he sees how connected she is to, like, Brody is to his teacher. And so he kind of finds out, he stalks her a little bit. You know, he's very, you know, controlled, and he wants to find out who this woman is. He's very intrigued by her. So he stalks her a bit, finds out about her, and he finds out that she has, you know, some money issues. So he offers her a really large amount of money to basically spend time with Brody after school, like a few days a week or whatever. And so she's doing that, and he's just so into her and very intrigued by her, sees how good she is for Brody. So he decides she's going to be his wife. She doesn't want to get married. She was, I don't know if she was married. It was her fiance before, but it was the abusive psycho person in the past that has ties to dangerous stuff that she doesn't want any part of. And of course, this guy is going to be the head of the mafia. And she's scared of him looking into her past and discovering everything about her. So he basically kind of proposes that they get married. And he's very like, I'm never going to fall in love. After what happened to his mother, he will never fall in love with anybody. You know the type. It's that mafia hero that's never going to fall in love. But of course, he's going to fall in love. And she says no to him. She's like, I'm not doing that. I can't get married. And so he doesn't really like that. So eventually he kind of doesn't really take no for an answer. He kind of kidnaps her a little bit, and we have a forced marriage. And so now she's married to him, and you know, her past is going to come back, you know, to haunt them and all that kind of stuff. But what I really loved about this was that it wasn't like immediately getting into the sex. Like, it took a while. It was slow burn, and they really got to know each other. There were so many moments of him like really getting to know her being around his son. They would have like these movie date nights with the son. Like, they really got to know each other. So I really loved that, because I feel a lot of that has been missing in mafia romance for me, is like the build of a connection and not just being about sex. That's something I complained about Jagger Cole's book recently. I really loved it, but it's like there's no intimacy. So there was a lot of intimacy built in this one, and I think that's why I ended up giving it 5 stars, because I did have one issue with this, and it was the over-the-top twist reveal at like the 3rd act. That was just so outlandish and unbelievable and kind of over the top that I was just like, it kind of took me out of the story, and I was like, we didn't really need that. Like, it was enough of what was going on already, and to do that, it just seemed crazy. But I haven't read a lot of Lilian Harris, but I have seen that happen in her other books, so I think that's just something she does, is like that over-the-top twist that she thinks she kind of has to put in there. And so I didn't bring down my rating because of that, because I just love the intimacy between these two, and the romance was really crafted beautifully, and I really felt their connection. I felt they were like this perfect little family together. So I really loved it. It had some breeding in here because he needs to have an heir, so he wants to get her pregnant. So the sex was hot. I really loved this. So again, I gave it 5 stars, and then I gave it 4 chilies because it was very spicy, and I absolutely loved it. Oh, and he was a pierced hero, which I loved. I had a great time with this one, so I was really impressed and had a good time. So much better for me. Okay, so then I decided to do a reread because I read this book a while ago. I didn't love it, but I know a lot of booktubers really loved this series. I know Maggie's Books and Stuff loved it. I think they did like a whole like readathon for it. And this is for like the Make Games The War series. So I read Obsession like a while ago. I think it was like over a year ago. And it didn't blow me away. I think I had high expectations since I saw so much hype for it. But I knew what I was getting into this time, and there was going to be like buddy reads of it for the readathon. So I was like, let me reread that one and I'll try the second one. So I reread Obsession. Now I listened to the audiobook because I bought the audiobook way back, and I ended up buying the audiobook for the second one as well, because the audiobook is very well done. It's a full cast of characters, and I mean, let me tell you, some of the voices are very sexy. This series is like just crazy over the top. It's mostly smut. little plot, you know, and I think it's 5 books. I don't know if it's 4 or 5 books, but this is Obsession is the first one, and this is about Sunday Fallon. She is a latent shifter. She hasn't shifted yet. I think she's like 23, and she's going to, I think it's Ravenscroft University, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm not positive, but her grandfather sends her to this university for like the supernatural elite, and there she meets multiple men that are going to be her love interest, because this is a white shoes. She is a shifter. She runs into her shifter mate that she basically rejected. His name is Kingston. In the first book, I didn't know how I felt about Kingston, but I'll tell you more when I get to the second book. But Kingston is kind of like the bully, because he was rejected by her. And I mean, you can just imagine being like a rejected shifter alpha and how that would be if your mate rejected you. So I totally understand his bullying. And then there is Caleb, and he is a former priest that was turned into a vampire, and he's kind of teaching her how to control her powers and access everything. And he had the sexiest voice in the audiobook. I freaking love Caleb's voice. Then we have Noah, and he is a vampire prince. He's been stalking her, and he thinks she's his mate, and he wants her. And then we have Alec, and he is a demigod. Kind of think Thor, but maybe he's more of like a Loki. And so she gets involved, kind of involved with most of them. Not really in this book, but that's what this series is. She has to just kind of make a decision of which one is going to be her mate. And she kind of chooses somebody by the end of this book, but that's not where it ends. We have a plot that's ongoing, and like a lot of mystery about who she really is and all that kind of stuff. So rereading this one, I think I gave it 3.5 the first time. This time I gave it a 4-star. I knew what I was getting into. It's not the best thing you've ever read, but it's fun. It's a good time. So I had a good time with it. It is 4 stars, 3.5 chilies. Okay, then I'll just go over real quickly, because I can't really get into it because it's the second book. But I read Rejection, and this is the second one, and it continues the story where we left off. It's kind of a slight little cliffhanger of what's going on. This book, I will say, establishes more of like getting you little hints about who she is, who her mother is, why is she like so important for this thing that might lead to the apocalypse type of thing. We don't know. There's just lots of little hints. So there wasn't a lot resolved in this. So honestly, it felt like 80% smut and 20% plot. But I did really enjoy Kingston in this. Like in the first one, she literally catches him hooking up with another woman because she won't be with him. And so that kind of will always rub a reader the wrong way. And in this, it's like you really understand Kingston more, and I really was rooting for him, and I liked him a lot more. And she was just so cold and rejected him, so I completely understood Kingston's behavior. So in the second one, I really loved Kingston. A lot more goes on with her and Kingston in this book, and she's starting to build connections with the other people that she didn't in the first one. So that's kind of vague, but I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars, and again, it was 3.5 chilies. So I had a good time with it. I don't know if I'm going to continue for the readathon because I have so much on my TBR, but I'm debating continuing it because I know Autumn is like finished that series. I think she bought the second series, so it'll be interesting to see what she thinks. Okay, so then I read another shifter romance, and I finally read The Heir Apparents Rejected Mate by Cate C. Wells. I read the first book, which was like the Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate, like I think a couple years ago. And I've had this on my TBR forever, and I still haven't got to it. So I was really happy that I finally read this. I didn't love it as much as the first one, but I did enjoy it a lot. It's still, again, a rejected mate situation, so it's kind of brutal watching the heroine go through that. The setting was a little weird for me, but because we are in a different pack, this is the second book in the 5 packs series. And so this is, let me see, the Moonlake pack, and this is for Cate and Rosie. And Cate is like the future, obviously, the heir apparent. He's going to be the heir. And this pack is not like living like old school, like, you know, in dens and all that kind of stuff like the other one was. This one, they've kind of took them out of the den into like a high-rise building, and like they have a big business, and so they're more part of like the human world. But Rosie is actually a scavenger, and they're really treated as less than. They kind of live in the swampy area in these like shacks, and they are more kind of like wild, and they scavenge, and they think they're like steal things. She has like a weird thing about how like it's not stealing because it's part of the pack. Anyways, he can't relate to it. But so she's a scavenger. She's kind of bullied. There's like a definitely like the higher rank where his group is, and this is set in high school. So that was kind of a weird setting for me, is like the whole high school Mean Girls like high school thing for shifters, I guess. And she basically goes into heat, and it's kind of triggered by her finding her mate and recognizing her mate. So she realizes that Cate is her mate, and she kind of tries to approach him in front of everybody at the school. And again, this is another thing where she gets completely rejected. And so she like goes out the door, and she finally shifts for the first time. And what I loved was that she ends up having like this huge wolf that's like 4 times the size as like a regular wolf. So, you know, here's this heir, like powerful guy, and she's pretty powerful, but he has no idea that how big her wolf is. Cate, I think even with the rejection, I thought there was a lot more to his character, because he's been told certain things from his family. He is living everything for the pack, and he knows he can't be with her because his uncle, like, it's like a lot. It's kind of hard to explain, but his uncle and him would need to like fight probably for him to be the heir and take over the pack once his dad goes down. And he knows he can't beat his uncle, so like there's a lot riding on him, and he knows if he is with a scavenger, like that will push his uncle to turn people against him. So there's a lot going on politically and like behind the scenes, and like responsibilities of why he rejected her. It's a sad thing too, where like a lot of the, you know, richer, you know, the high up shifters, if they are mated to one of the scavengers, they don't even like mate them and be with them. They basically just screw them and like leave them in like the swampy area and whatever. So it's a really big class kind of divide in this series, in this book, I mean. So, but what I did like about this was like the last part of the book where like he does a grovel. It's not as bad as like having a grovel like the other guy did, but he does like realize what's important, and like realizes Rosie is what's important, and kind of sets his standards there, and realizes he needs to put her first. So the whole end part I really loved, but it was like not enough of it. I wanted more of that. And then the end wrapped up a lot of quickly, where I still have questions about what's going to go on with his pack. It may continue answers in the other books, but I don't know. It just left a little something missing. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And then like 2.5 chilies, because they're really not that spicy, but it's okay. We don't have to have the spice, although I would love it a little bit more shifter, nodding, and spicy stuff. Okay, then I listened to an ALC. I listened to The Arrangement by Adriana Locke. This is the second book in the Brewer family series. This is my first Adriana Locke. Again, I listen to ALCs for like new authors, so I can discover new authors that maybe I wouldn't have tried before. But you can definitely read this as a standalone. So in this is Jason and Chloe. Jason is the CEO of Brewer, Brewer Heir. And she is actually his executive assistant. But they are really good friends. They're really close. They have a great working relationship. They're very flirty and have a good banter. There was great banter, a lot of funny stuff in this book. So they have a great relationship, but you can definitely tell they're mutually pining for each other. Big time on Jason's side too. He's like very into her, but of course she's his assistant, so he's never really gone there with her. but she's kind of in a bad situation. Oh, I'm sorry. Her name is Chloe, and she's kind of in a tough situation financially. She's living in a horrible place with her grandma. She's taking care of her grandma on her own, and then like her building ends up, I think, getting condemned, so they're like gonna lose their place. And she happens to hear about this bet he did with his brothers. So him and his brothers do these weird bets, and then like whoever like loses it or whatever, like the money goes towards like a charity or something. And they did this weird bet. It's kind of a flimsy setup, but it's okay. They did this weird bet where they said that he wouldn't be able to get married and stay married for 6 months. So she hears about this and she thinks, I could, you know, have that money that would, instead of go to charity, he could help me. And so she offers a marriage of convenience so that they can be married for the 6 months, and you know, he could also help her out. When he finds out the living situation she was in, he was so upset, like, why didn't you tell me? You know, you can't handle this all on your own. And so he's very sweet, very protective, very swoon worthy. And so they end up going to Vegas to get married. And once they like go to get married, it's on, because Jason has wanted her for a really long time. She's wanted him. She doesn't really ever like want to get married, because like, so she didn't take it as seriously as he did at first, because she didn't really like think she could be in a marriage. All her relationships fell apart. So basically Jason's determined to make her realize that this could be forever, not a 6-month thing. So I really loved this. I thought it was super funny, super cute, really spicy, good sex scenes, had a good time. I loved her grandma. She added a lot of humor to the book. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars and 3 chilies. And then it was narrated by Sebastian York and Amy McFadden, and they did a phenomenal job. Okay. This is a bummer one and a big one that I had to get through. It took me a while, but I finally did it. And I read The Fiery Cross by Adriana Gabaldon, and this is the 5th book in the Outlander series. I just got this in the mail yesterday because I'm annotating them, and then sure enough, it's all bent up. They like threw it over my gate, and it didn't have secure packaging, so now I'm gonna have to return this and get another one. But I figured I'd show it for my video. All right, so The Fiery Cross is the 5th book. There's not much I can say, because you guys, if you haven't read it, it's Jamie and Claire's romance. They're in America. They have Fraser's Ridge, and there's maybe some kind of battle brewing. I think it was with the Regulators, if that's what they were called, if I can remember. I don't think it says on the back. But that's kind of brewing, and Jamie has, for the land that he was given, has to build a militia to go fight for the crown and everything for this. So, and of course Jamie doesn't want to do that, but he has to, and so that's kind of where we're at in this book. Honestly, this is my least favorite in the series. It is so long, and nothing happens in this book. Like, there's barely any plot in this. It's so much day-to-day, which I know Diana loves to do day-to-day and explain every single thing, which I don't mind when there's a plot that's driving the story. But I think there's like 14 chapters on just the gathering in this, when they all gather and they're gonna light the fiery cross. And, or was that, no, not the no, I'm sorry, not lighting the fiery cross, but I think the wedding. Oh my God, I can't even, it was so long, you guys. I made it through it because I had the audiobook, because this was so boring. Like, nothing fucking happened in this book. And then you have the Stephen Bonnet situation, which is the villain from the previous book that we're still after. Jamie's trying to find him. He wants to kill him. And we get to that at the end, and it's still unresolved with Stephen Bonnet. So, like, literally, like, nothing happened in this book. I did still love Jamie and Claire. I really loved Roger. Seeing Roger's relationship grow with Jamie with his daughter. So all the characters, I still love them a lot. It's just, it went nowhere. Like, I don't understand why it needed to be this long. If you would have taken 400 pages out of this book, it would have been a 5-star. But it was literally like, went on and on. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars, and I'm sad about it, but it was really tough for me. So hopefully the next one will be better, because I just can't mull through a long ass book that has nothing, no plot, no nothing going on in it. So happy I'm continuing. I still love Jamie and Claire. Jamie is still the king in this. He's still amazing, even as like an older grown man, you know, with a child and a grandchild and all that kind of stuff. So still love them, but it was a big disappointment for me. Okay, so then I listened to another ALC, and I listened to The One I Didn't See Coming by Piper Rayne. This is the third book in the Plain Daisy Ranch series. The first time I've read Piper Rayne. I read P. Rayne, so that's kind of like the same, but it's just like darker romance, I think. This is more of like small town, cute, kind of country, cowboyish kind of vibes. And I really loved this because I'm just going to give it away right at the start. Sorry, I don't think it's giving a spoiler, even though nobody brought it up in their reviews. I was like, why are we hiding this? Has one of my favorite tropes, which is pregnant but not with his baby. I fucking love it. I love that trope so much. So in this, we have Emmett and Briar, and Briar has returned to her hometown to start fresh. She had a really bad breakup. She was basically in a relationship, but she found out he was really married, and she is pregnant. Nobody knows about her pregnancy, so she's kind of keeping it on the wraps. She's coming to work on their ranch as like a yoga instructor, and she had a crush on Emmett in high school, but now she hates him for some reason. He has no idea why she hates him. So there's a lot of great banter in this. He's very cocky, and he's always seen as like the playboy, you know, funny guy out of the family. But there's a lot more to Emmett, which she realizes, because the house she was staying in is, I think, being put up for sale, or it's not available anymore. And so she doesn't have a place to go. So she ends up becoming Emmett's roommate. And so they're in this forced proximity situation together. And so she starts to see a lot more about who Emmett really is, because he has ambitions that like his brothers don't listen to his ideas for the ranch. And he also finds out about her pregnancy, and he is so supportive of her. He keeps her secret. He goes to doctor's appointments with her. He's very like on top of it and there for her. So I think she quickly realizes like her old grudge is nothing. Like Emmett's amazing. And so they start to kind of secretly date, and she's keeping the pregnancy thing from people. She feels like they're going to judge her, and he wants things like out in the open. So I don't know. It just was super sweet, funny, cute banter. I really enjoyed it. The audiobook was duet narration, and it was done by Jason Clark and Ava Erickson. And duet is like my favorite way to go. I just loved it. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 3 chilies. I thought it was just a really nice, sweet, you know, small town cowboy type of thing. And I just love a man that like takes care of a woman when she's pregnant with like not his baby. Like it melts my heart. So I really, really had a good time with that audiobook. Okay, so then I want to quickly bring up, I did another reread of Twilight of Embers, because I had the ALC way back, so I listened to the audiobook again. This is a Dragon Shifter series. I really love this series. Well, the first book. I never continued with it because I didn't get the ALCs for the other one, so I'm debating getting the audiobooks for the second and third one, or just reading them, because I don't think they're super long. But I loved this book, and this is also a why choose. So definitely in there for my tropes. So this is Hayden, and she was actually, her mother and father were like murdered. So she was put in the system, and now she's going to college, and she runs into Knox, and he immediately recognizes her as his fated mate. But it's not just his fated mate, it's like his brothers, and like they're not, I don't think they're all like fully brothers, but maybe, no, but they feel like both brothers. He has a twin who is Easton, and Easton's kind of like the bully in the situation because he does not want a fated mate. He knows how bad things can go if you lose your fated mate, so he's being a total dick to her and doesn't want her part of the group. She has no idea that she's actually a dragon shifter, and female dragon shifters are like really rare, so they're trying to protect her too because other dragon shifters could come for her. Then you have Hale, who I loved. He's like the damaged, scarred hero. I think he was like kidnapped when he was younger and like tortured and stuff, so he doesn't like being touched, but he definitely like only lets her touch him and wants to touch her, and he's very alpha and touch her and you die vibes. And then we have Killian, and he is the older kind of alpha of their group. He's a billionaire. He owns a club, so he's very dominant. I love him. So I reread that, had a great time yet again with it, and I gave it 5 stars. And I think it's 3 chilies because there is some sex stuff a little bit that goes on at the end, but it's not too spicy. But I loved it, and so I'm definitely going to continue with the other ones. Okay, so now on to the book that I need to rave about and talk a lot about. I'm trying not to go too deep into it because it's hard to explain. It's detailed, and it hasn't come out yet. It's an arc. So I'm talking about Born for Silk by Nicci Harris. I am on Nicci Harris's arc team, so this is one of my most anticipated reads for 2024. I've been like promoting it all year from her team. You know, I've been waiting for it. She gives us little teasers, and I'm so excited that I finally got to read it. Once it came through my email, I immediately downloaded it and had to start. But what's crazy about this is Nicci Harris is one of my favorite mafia authors, but this is a completely like different type of book for her. This is a post-apocalyptic kind of dystopia fantasy type of series that she's starting, and so it's very different for her, and I was very intrigued to see how she was going to go with it. Now I might be looking at my review over here on my computer real quick because the world building is very detailed and it's a complicated kind of setup, but I think Nicci Harris did such a phenomenal job of world building. And I know it's really tough in like the first book of a series or a fantasy or whatever, when it's like so heavily involved with world building, it can kind of lose the focus from the romance. But I think Nicci Harris did such a good job of balancing the world building and learning about this new world and what's going on and all the different characters and types of characters, I haven't even gotten to that yet, but it's complicated, and she has like a whole glossary at the beginning of her book that is very much needed because, you know, I really had to read through each of the glossary of the different terms and things going on. So honestly, she did such a good job of balancing all of that with also building a really amazing romance. Okay, so what is this book about? Okay, so this book is set like thousands of years, you know, in the future. We've had major climate issues, of course. People kind of got ahead of themselves and we started messing with genetics and genes, and it was used to kind of like help, you know, illnesses or whatever. But then it got to the point of, you know, messing with human, like kind of genetically engineering humans. So when that started to happen, we have these humans that are genetically engineered. They're better. They use stuff to make it so they could handle the environment that we're living in now with the new climate issues. And there was also like civil war that led to where we're at now. So these genetically engineered or enhanced individuals, I'm trying to remember what they are called. The Zinde. They are in power now. And in this world, it's called the Cradle and the Trade. Basically, the Cradle is this world, and the Trade is kind of like the government power type of thing. And each person, there's the common, which are regular people, and there's people that are Zinde that are like genetically engineered and enhanced, and they're in power. And so the regular people or whatever that are part of the Trade, they are given a job, a trade, and they need to fulfill this job. Their life, oh, it's getting really windy outside. Okay, sorry. You might hear a lot of heavy winds. They are, okay, sorry. I think it was like hailing or it's starting to rain, even though it's freaking hot in San Diego right now. But anyways, the people have these certain jobs, and there's this thing called meaningful purpose, and that's when you've fulfilled your role, you're doing everything to support and live for the trade, for the cradle. Everything's in service of the cradle. So I know this is kind of complicated. I'm trying to make it easier to understand, but they also have things called, the women called silk girls, and you kind of think Handmaid's Tale, but it's not for like married couples or anything, but these are basically breeding girls. They are raised and protected to keep them safe and with no trauma in their life, so that there won't be any genetic issues, and they are there for the king and his lords, so his like high up people, to breed, and one of them will be the one that ends up breeding with the king. What's interesting is nobody knows who the king breeds with. It's all like done in secret, and that's why they have multiple of them, so that it can protect the king's heir. So none of them know who the actual father of their child is, and they are supposed to have these kids. They get to have like, I think 2 kids or 3 kids option, and then they kind of move on and go take care of babies. But it's complicated, you guys. I think I'm explaining too much. But in this, we have Rome, and he is the king. He is very battle, heavy scarred, very tough guy. He does pretty cut off emotionally. He's been raised to be the leader of, the trade and the cradle. And he didn't really care about the whole heir thing yet. He's the king. He's very focused. But he needs to get an heir and all of that. So we have Aster. Sorry. Okay, yeah. So we have Aster, and she is our silk girl. She's been, secluded, growing up for this meaningful purpose of breeding and having a child for the cradle. That's her whole meaning to life, and that's all she cares about. She's a little different than the other girls because she's not fully, even have some enhancements, so she's a little different. But she happens to catch Rome's eye, and Rome becomes, oh, it's pouring. What? Sorry if it's really loud right now in the background, but she catches Rome's eye, and he becomes fascinated with her, and eventually, she comes to his court to be like one of his silk girls, and he kind of wants more than just her to be a silk girl, and he becomes obsessed with her, and he definitely falls hard. He's very possessive, and this is a very big size difference because he's genetically engineered. He's like almost 7 feet. She's maybe 5'3", 5'4", and so there's a big size difference. He's too big kind of thing going on. So there's lots of dangers in this post-apocalyptic world. It's very exciting. It had me on the edge of my seat. I was trying to figure out how are we going to get them where they could be together, and where she would be able to keep the child. Would that happen? It's crazy. But Nicci does it, and she does it in such a great way. And I'm just so excited by this series. I love the romance. It is pouring really loud outside. I love the romance. I loved the spicy times. There's some kinky stuff. The way they decide to do some butt play when he's that big is very interesting. I liked like the outside elements of danger. There was just so much going on with this, and so I am so excited by it. I absolutely loved it. I gave this 6 stars, and I gave it 6 stars because I was fascinated by the world. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I'm very excited to continue the series. And I don't know when the next book, I think the next book doesn't come out till 2025. Okay, of course, when I'm filming, it is pouring and thundering outside right now, so I apologize. But I don't even know how bad this is gonna come out during this part. But anyways, I fucking love this book. I loved it. I was sitting at 5 stars for a while, but the more I thought about it and as I was writing out my review, I just decided I'm giving it 6 stars because it was very unique. I haven't really read anything like it, and I think it's so impressive that Nicci made that dive into a completely different type of romance, and it's a big step for an author to take, to go from like mafia to post-apocalyptic fantasy. Like, that's huge. Oh, I do gotta say, there is a star in this, and it is his huge genetically enhanced eagle. He's like this giant eagle that ends up being very protective of Aster and building a connection with her. And I just loved him so much. You know, an animal will always get me, and I loved this eagle. He was just so precious. So I'm not going to bring up the triggers because there's quite a bit, and I don't want to ruin it for you. So check your triggers if you're worried about it, because it does have some very dark content on it. And so just be prepared. So again, I gave it 6 stars, and I gave it, I think, 4 chilies, because it is spicy. It is fun. I loved it. And I love the breeding aspect. I love breeding kink. So thank you. All right. I need to wrap this up because it's really loud. Okay. So then my last book that I read was Forward Progress. This was an ALC. This is the 4th book in that series, the Vegas Aces, the playbook series that I'm reading by Suzanne. This one, the last one finally got better for me. This one took 2 steps back. The heroine I hated in the beginning of this series, and she started to grow on me. And then with everything that happened in the previous book, you know, like he gets arrested. There's a lot of stuff that goes down where, you know, he had attacked her boyfriend, kind of attacked him, but went to go get her like dad signed baseball from his house and kind of like broke in to do that. So he gets in trouble, he gets arrested. So there's a lot of fallout from Travis's things that he did in the previous book. And so he has to face a lot of consequences. And the way they handled that was not great. And I don't really give things away like in my review because it's the 4th book, but I'll just say it here. Victoria was such a fucking bitch. She is like the worst heroine to me. She comes off so immature because he's going through hell with like his football team, his public image. He might not be able to play. His body's being put through the ringer for this football, you know, and everything's on the line for him. And she's all annoyed because he's not spending enough time with her. And then he doesn't tell her first. She found out from the media and he's not communicating with her. And so she decides, I'm getting a divorce. They did like a arranged marriage for this situation. And then the moment there was an issue or problems with them, instead of working it out and talking it out with him, when he has a daughter involved too in this situation, she just basically is going to file for divorce when she was with her previous, like, verbally an asshole boyfriend for like 3 years and took his abuse. But you're going to freaking divorce Travis because of this situation. So it made her very unlikable. And I was very nice. I decided to give it 3.5 stars because it's an ALC and I took on the whole series. But honestly, like, no, like, I hate this heroine. Travis doesn't respond very well either, but he works, like, his responses make sense with everything that's on his shoulders and what he's going through. So anyways, I gave it 3.5 stars. It's probably like a 2.5 star if I wasn't being nice, or a 3 star, but it's an ALC, so I'm trying to be a little bit nicer. But honestly, I don't know about this series. It's just, they're like novellas, 5 books when it could be 1 book and not be as bad. But anyways, that's it. I don't want to rant about that too much longer. But those are all the books that I read this week. I'm sorry, I'm trying to rush through this. I kind of had to rush through the Born for Silk because of the rain and everything. So hopefully I gave it justice because I absolutely loved it. I love Nikki Harris and I'm just so happy with this book and I can't wait for the series. Anyways, hopefully you guys are in the romance readathon and participating with us. I'm having so much fun. I actually did reading sprints on my channel for the first time the other day, so that was interesting. I was thinking of maybe doing reading sprints maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks on my channel. So let me know if you'd be interested in that, if it's even anything you'd want to watch. But I loved participating in reading sprints, so that's something I could think about doing for my channel. But thank you so much for watching this. Please make sure you like this video. Leave me a comment down below. And I will see you guys on the next one.